Well, hey folks, it's your old pal King Waspinator here. I'm going to talk a little bit more about Dune and dive a bit deeper into some of my thoughts about the portrayal of the Harkonnens in film in general. Now, there's a thing that you can go back and look at some of the footage, from college lectures he had done, where in the late '70s, early '80s, Frank Herbert had done some speaking stuff, talking about his thoughts on a lot of different things, including Dune. And there had been some issues with some gay students taking umbrage with the fact that a part of the Baron Harkonnen's villainy within the narrative of the original Dune book was that he not only was he homosexual, but it was perverse in and of itself just based on the homosexuality. And that had been like a bit of a trope that is like not entirely an unfair critique to point out that there had been a thing in like a lot of stories like Dressed to Kill and The Psycho and a whole lot of other things going all the way back to like bad news or sensationalist reporting on Ed Gein, the serial killer from like 70, 80 years earlier. I can't remember exactly when that happened off the top of my head, but anyway, there was this critique about the overindulgence of the gay villain kind of thing, and him getting some complaints about that. And I can't help but notice that in both film versions, that was very much downplayed, if not addressed at all. There's maybe some hints of it in the David Lynch version, but that is also as much tied in with just this psycho sadistic kind of thing that David Lynch was doing with the Harkonnens in that movie. And in the new movie, this is like if you only have seen the movies and you haven't got into the books, there's like a lot of stuff that's really hard to contextualize about what that movie is actually saying. And one of the things in the new version of Dune that I find kind of odd is that the portrayal of the Harkonnens was almost more what you'd expect of the Bene Tleilax, as opposed to like how they are in the books. See, here's the thing. What you do if you don't want to just be blaming Baron Harkonnen's villainy on his homosexuality is you just don't really bring it up, and or you just go ahead and just have him be a straight person. But like either way, it shouldn't really be a focal point of the Dune story in any regard. As long as he's an intelligent and ruthless guy who's out to get Paul's family killed and seize power for himself, that's all you really need to have a villain. And in fact, out of that, you might have someone that there might have some traits about them that you admire. Because a good villain is someone that on some level you kind of almost admire them, or you can sympathize somewhat with their point of view. Just look at, I hate to be making this reference in a Dune video, but just look at how they handled Thanos in the Avengers movies. You very much sympathize with his point of view, even if you don't necessarily agree with it, or you realize that he has not fully thought out the logic of all that. But instead, what the movies do, the sci-fi miniseries probably did a better job at cleaving to like portraying the Baron Harkonnen as an actual human being. But like the Lynch version, like he was like I said, there's this like psycho sadistic, like 80s goth thing going on with the Harkonnens, with the heart plugs and the playing in their blood and blood showers and all that kind of stuff. That wasn't in the books. Oh, thanks. Great. They're remodeling in the unit next door, and they'd been quiet all morning. Now's the perfect time for some saws. Well, anyway, and then the current version, it's this, like I said, he looks more like, how you picture some extreme portrayal of Skytail from the Bene Tleilax, less so much the Baron Harkonnen. It just occurred to me earlier this morning that, by having them all be these weird, bald, alien, Martian-looking guys in the new movie, you remove one of the essential clues in terms of the hair color thing that gives you, like, any indication that Paul is the grandson of the Baron, because his mother had red hair, and the Baron had red hair, and Raban and Phaedra have red hair. It's kind of like in Game of Thrones, when Ned Stark figures out that Joffrey was like not actually, what's his name's son because of his blonde hair. Maybe that's why they didn't want to do it, because Game of Thrones had just done that, and they didn't want to seem unoriginal, even though Game of Thrones was written well after Dune was written, so it's actually the other way. But, you know, what is it saying if you're like, the studio's like, well, you know, we don't want to offend people by making the villain gay. And if the villain can't be gay, he has to be a literal monster. Is that really a better message in its own way, especially for people who take interest in like, oh, this is a cool movie. I want to I don't want to wait 2 years to find out what happens. I'm going to read the book. And then you get a very different portrayal of the Baron, and it's like what you have in your head is like just something that is literally monstrous. I don't know. I feel like there's some way to find a happy medium. Super awesome. That you know, can keep the Harkonnens as bad guys, without like, you know, necessarily you know, making it out that like, you know, there should be a way where he can still like be a dude who likes lads, that isn't you know, the source of his villainous isn't that, you know. There's still ways to have him be a perverse character. It doesn't necessarily have to be that. So yeah, anyway, I guess I noticed that they just do this shit with the Harkonnens, and in the current version, as much as that movie had a lot of admirable qualities, the more I think about it, the more little things kind of like, like what is up with like the Spider-Woman shit? I mean, that's just as weird and off-putting and not in from the books as, you know, like the milking the cat thing. It whatever. I guess this video is kind of ruined, so if you've stuck it through this long, hit like for the sound of the buzzsaw and the apartment next to mine, and hit thumbs down for my opinions, and leave a comment, leaving me your credit card information and how to get hold of you, and stay waspinated.